Hello, 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 hello. Here we go. We are live from St Albans in Hertfordshire, England, United Kingdom, planet Earth, the solar system. I don't know what's the name of our solar system. I'm not sure. The solar system. Anyhow, here we are. Richard, could you tell us what charcoal pencil you use mostly? H, M, or S? I'm guessing that's hard, medium, or soft. Soft would be the answer. I use 6B, 4B or 6B. They tend to be interchangeable. So yeah, in a way, to some degree, the softer the better. To some degree. Do me a favor, folks. Let me know if all my levels are good, etc. Bit of a change today, in as much as I am going to have the reference on the screen while we draw. Why is that, you may ask? Well, because we don't do it very often, and for those who don't have access to the reference, it's useful, obviously. And our subject today, he's modestly decided to keep his undergarments on, which means that from a sensor point of view, we're good to go. So with that in mind, I thought it'd be a nice little change of pace. If anyone starts comparing the photo to the drawing, auto ban. So there's that. I can't. Do I? We'll see. All right, let's get cracking, huh? Let me switch cameras. There we go. And there's our subject. Could make him a little bit bigger. Don't want it to be too big. There we go. I am of quite low energy these days, so I'm going to be taking my time. We'll see how it goes. And let's one step at a time. I may not get through all of these poses, so I'm going to give it my best effort, but always a chance we may have to cut the session early. Let's see how we do. Same applies to the Thursday session. I am undecided as of right now whether the Thursday session will go ahead, and I will really not be able to, unfortunately, be able to answer that question until the day of. Oh, and for those of you who do have access to the reference, apologies, I should have sent this memo out. We are in February, obviously it's the 3rd. We are working on the January page, reference page. I did not set up a new page for today because I've probably got about 3 more streams before I go for surgery. I'm guessing, give or take. Setting up a new page, reference page, is frankly a bit of a hassle. So combining January and February, we'll let that go, right? All right. Enough rambling, they said. Let me start the clock. I'm thinking we're going for, let's say we'll go for a 15. If the drawing is turning out to be semi-decent, we might extend that a little bit. If the drawing is turning out to not be so decent, you know, we might go the other way. Let's find our shoulders. Sorry, I need to, there we go. Okay. He's sitting on a pedestal, so a very low pedestal. But the consequence of that being that his legs are very foreshortened coming towards us. His upper torso is roughly stable, we'll say. Oh, you guys can see the reference. I forget. See, I'm talking as if you can't see the reference for those who haven't. Okay, you can see it. So I'll shut up. Let's draw. But point being is, I'm still finding my upper and my lower torso. Then I'll go in. My aces, we can see, it's going to be about here, give or take. He is very, very, very subtly going away from us with his upper torso. Well, I do think we can probably extend that just a little bit. Okay, bottom of the lower torso is here, let's say. Center line. Where's the knee? The end of the knee is going to be about here. Give or take. Want to continue that rhythmical idea, we'll call it a line of action. But there's no real action. Line of movement, line of direction. Coming this way. And we can see, even though he's wearing this garment, we can get a quick sense that our mass is doing something like that. All right, where's this knee? Well, let's find Acis is here, we've decided. Arch of the ribcage is going to be about here. Arch of the ribcage is there. Pectoral muscle sitting, as we know, at the 5th and the 6th. And if we come down to just like the edge of where the pectoral is going to be, about here, and I just come across here, very roughly, this knee is sitting about here, right? Something. That'll do us for now. And then this leg coming down. Here, ankle slightly higher, sitting in relation to the foot, probably about here. That'll do us. Okay, distance between the leg here and the pectoral from here to here. So this is actually going to be a bit lower. We look at the distance here to here. So I'll just pretty close there, but that's probably a little bit better. Navel sitting in here. Hey, Margot. Hope you're doing well. Hope everyone's doing well. Excuse me. His belt line, which is obviously the aces, but also where his garment is, his underpants, his, what I guess they're underpants, look pretty underpanty to me, sitting there. Something like that. That'll get us in the ballpark. Okay, coming up, manubrium, sitting about here, coming up, clavicle. You can see the top part of this arm going down this way. Obviously this clavicle is pushing up further because of the it's supporting on the plinth. Coming down this way. Where's his elbow? Well, if the bottom of his pectoral is here, elbow sitting roughly about here, right? Forearm. And this hand is sitting here. Deltoid. Coming off the center line. Sternocleidomastoid. Ear is sitting about here. Now we can see his chin. If we see the clavicle coming up this way, right? You can actually see his chin intersects that right about here. Something like that. Neck coming down, trapezes. Okay. Clavicle, pectoral, pit of the arm there, and coming into the pectoral muscle here. And then on this side, same idea. Coming up this way. Come across the form, line those up. Something like so. Okay. This is all rather loose, but because I'm dragging my hand across it constantly, I'm going to leave that for right now. And we'll come back to that. Let's just get in a little bit more detail in here. So coming down, once again, our ASIS is about here. Ignore this. This is a little high. It's not to be down here. But our ASIS is here. And coming off that, obviously, is the oblique sitting in here. Then we've got our gluteus medius sitting there. Oblique coming up to the rib cage. And we get just a very small slither of the lat direction change right there. Something like that. That'll do us for now. Excuse me. All right. Deltoid sitting in here. Come across, we can see our direction change happens about here. Something like that. You're snowed in Charlotte, Margot. Yeah, you know, I saw your photo on Instagram of the snow. Looked lovely. I know the reality is it's always not always that way, but hope you're keeping warm. Easiest. Deltoid. Come across the form. Our bicep is sitting in here. It's very, very subtle, but you almost get the sense that the bicep, especially when it's kind of in this type of pose, there's almost like a sagging that happens very, very subtly, especially with someone like our subject who's quite athletic and has mass to his bicep, you know, almost like it sags down here very, very slightly. Once again, why do we even think about that? Because at every opportunity we're looking for what we'll call meaningful direction change. We don't want to just, you know, you don't describe everything. This is really where, you know, your aesthetics and your choices as an artist come into play. Something like that. His legs are tricky. Yeah, we'll talk about the legs in a sec for sure. Great for me to see the reference. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm glad. Look, it's useful, right? Sometimes we're simply not in the position to do this, well, for a number of reasons. But given that this model is clothed, we'll say, you know. And while we're just talking about the reference, just very quickly, because it's something I don't do enough, and I need to be more mindful to do it, is I do need to just say, you know, the reference for this session is actually from, as you can see on the photo, it's from Obscura 29. Now, my understanding is Obscura 29 is kind of like a sister company to Graphit. They reached out to me, and the language would suggest that they're kind of connected to some degree or another, although I don't know to what degree. But their packs and their presentations are put together in a very similar way. I have links to Obscura and to Graphit on my website, on the reference page, as well as a page which is literally composed of all the streams. My point being is, I saw this set just this morning for the first time, and as soon as I saw it, I figured, A, we haven't drawn a male model in a while, and it's an absolutely superb set of reference. Now, there is an absolute pile of them. You know, when I know it's a good set is when I'm going through them, when I'm pulling for the stream, and I end up just pulling way too many. That happened to me today, and it's a very good problem to have. But it was just like, you know, we could quite easily probably do, you know, 5 or 6 sessions with this guy and not get bored of the kind of poses and the dynamics that he brings. Very, very expressive. And I was just very impressed with the model pack. So I would encourage you, you know, if you have a mind to pick up a reference pack or two, do consider supporting Obscura 29 and Graphit. They both do really excellent work, and if you buy a reference pack from them, I get a little taste. So it's a win-win for everyone. So, you know, if you're looking for a way to support the channel, and you'd like something tangible in return beyond what we're doing here, then that's a really lovely thing. So just something to keep in mind. But regardless of that, great set and a great model, and they have some very nice sets over there. So I would encourage you to go check them out on Gumroad or on ArtStation, preferably Gumroad, for me to get a kickback. Yeah, check it out. So his calf muscle is sitting in here. Oh, and do me a favor, if you haven't done it already, while there's a few of you still here, do me a favor and like the video, would you? It helps, supposedly. Thank you very much. Look at this. What do we have going on here? You can see it on the reference, so I'm going to explain it on my drawing, but hopefully you'll see, like, look at the way we've got attaching up at the asis. We've got the rectus femoris coming down this way, and then it kind of bulges out this way, right? Comes down the leg. You can really see it even on this side too, coming down. Most likely what we're seeing here, obviously, as we know from previous conversations, this kind of shape that we get is the sartorius, the longest muscle in the body, right? Attaching at the asis and coming down this way and attaching on the inside of the knee. And to your point, Doug, about this being tricky, I think if we can find, you know, that kind of mantra about foreshortening, find the end point, connect those two ideas loosely, and then try and find the design language that speaks to you, that you can use to kind of express those ideas. Like for me, and one of the reasons I picked this pose is I love these types of foreshortened upper legs. Like, look at how angular and how expressive that upper leg is. There's so much to work with from a design language kind of point of view. We're really kind of spoiled for choice on how we want to show these things, right? So yeah, it's just when picking a pose, it's one of the kind of things I'm looking for is, you know, when I saw this leg, it was like, oh, that's really exciting, that whole kind of passage through here, right? That's kind of the idea. Yeah, he's a great model. Not sculpt, he's sculpted, but not overly. Yeah, yeah, he doesn't get into the kind of superhero domain, bodybuilder domain, and I agree. At least for me, far more interesting. I find bodybuilders, because here's the thing, you know, bodybuilders are quite unique, really, you know, as far as physiques go. But I find them, it can be, it's especially when they get into like the, you know, really large bodybuilders, we start getting into a realm of where things just start looking cartoonishly large, to the point where we lose a sense of kind of scale or reality. It's like, you know, it's one of those things, you look at a photo and you go, oh God, that guy's huge. But if you drew him like that, you'd be like, nah, it doesn't work. So we've got this kind of box/triangular thing going on with the knee here. I'm just trying to find, sorry, I'm working with a cold here, so. American Discord. Hi Rich, 35 years pro comic artist here. All right. I'm going to share your channel, thank you, with members of my own. Touch a lot of beats that artists who emit realism, for the most part, could really benefit from. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's wonderful to hear, and thank you for the kind words. Brilliant. Yeah, please feel free to let people know what's up. Yeah, we talk. I don't know if how often you've seen the channel, but we try to cover some. We try to cover some topics each stream. So you know, when we're dealing with foreshortened legs like this, as I've talked about before, you know, we do have a long line of action here, but the leg in and of itself, because it's foreshortened, it's much harder to find those long lines of action. So can you see the way I'm trying, at least? I'm not sure how successfully, but I'm trying at least. Once I've got the foreshortening in place, then to show the long lines of action or the rhythmical lines in the anatomy, right? We kind of, this is where we kind of switch gears. We're kind of jumping back and forth. Long line of action, find our foreshortening, then where's our line of action within the anatomy, and how can we group those, and how can we show and develop the idea of volume turning in space, right? Okay, so what's his leg doing here? It's coming around like this, and we can actually see the bottom edge about here, if we were drawing it as a cylinder. Well, sorry, not as a cylinder, as a box. The edge of the form is about here. So where we're here, we're actually seeing the underside of that. And then that kind of connects up and meets up with the what will ultimately be the lower leg. So once again, I'm kind of just finding the shape language as I go here, because, you know, we're dealing with quite a tricky form. We've got to be careful. The errors like this can very easily become weak. And it's also, once again, it's something where if we understand what we're drawing and we have a little bit of anatomical knowledge, it can really help inform our decision-making process, right? So for example, we're not just drawing from here to here. We're drawing, well, we're only drawing from here to here, but we're thinking about where does this volume come from? Where's it going to? So if we actually think about the leg, the leg is attached obviously to the lower torso, and well, you guys know how legs are attached. But the point being is what we've actually got coming from the back of the form, probably from about here, is the gluteus. And then that's coming to probably about here. And then we're getting the hamstring connecting. So we've got, once again, we're looking for direction change, right? That's where we're going to find it. So we're just going to jump back and forth as we try to refine clarity. I've been here for a very long time. I work while watching your process. Appreciate you sharing your PV. Thank you so much. American Discord. Appreciate it. His right leg is slightly leaning forward. It's quite deceiving. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, you know, if we actually look at what's happening with his right leg, obviously this is coming forward, not to the same degree as this one though. But then the calf, the lower leg is kind of going back, right? Something like that. So we've got these two ideas, and this leg is like it's quite tricky. Did we run out of music? What's this? Whitney, any tips on articulating the shoulder girdle, particularly on muscular males? How the pectoral deltoids and attachments and overlapping with each other and the clavicle. 100%. Yeah, I'll talk about that. Yes, I absolutely have some thoughts on that. Hopefully they'll be useful. He has a face in his right knee. Margot, bringing the important observations to hand. What type of face do you see? That's the question. The Rorschach question. Actually, let me find. So it's in the dark here. We've got his foot sitting in here. An American Discord, you say you started 35 years ago, so you and I have been at it probably around the same amount of time. Funny, I found my first paycheck. I found a copy of my first paycheck that I got in animation when I was 15 years old in 1987. So that's, gosh, that's actually going to be 40 years next year, isn't it? Although I started particularly young. So I should have probably been working about 35. Yeah, crazy. Crazy, crazy. Not a good sign when on your resume you find you take years away rather than add them. Remember when I hit like the 36 year mark or something, I remember thinking, oh no, I'll just say 30 years or 35. You don't want to sound like the eldest dude in the room. This guy looks like he broke his foot at some point. The top part of his foot is not connected in a normal way. It might just be the angle, I'm not sure. 94. All right. I'm slightly older than you then. All right. Hired when I was 16 as a ghost penciler on 3 comics, then went full-time with name credit, been freelancing full-time since 1999. That's great. I've told this story before, but I remember I was in school, and I was 15 at the time, and the term, or the few weeks before the summer break, in the year that I was in, they make you do work experience anywhere that you want. Basically, you get to choose. And, you know, a lot of people pick something close to home or something local and that. And I decided I'd go and seek out an animation studio in London. I was living, well, not far from where I am now, but, you know, 20 miles maybe from London. And I found an animation studio that would let me do my work experience there. And I already knew how to paint cells, you know, the acetate that they used to do, because I was just doing it for my own kind of enjoyment. And they didn't know what to do with me. So they're like, can you do anything? I'm like, well, I can kind of paint cells. And so they were really stuck for people because everyone was working on Roger Rabbit at the time. And so a lot of the freelancers from the London studios had all gone to work on Roger Rabbit. So they needed me to work on production. So they immediately got me working on a commercial. And then when my week, was it a week or 2 weeks? I forget. When that time was up, they said, do you want to stay for the summer? And I decided to stay for the summer, worked all summer. And then the time to go back to school was upon us. And studio was like, do you want to stay? Can you stay? Blah, blah. And I ended up making a deal with the school. I don't know if you get away with this now. I made a deal with the school where I could go to school 3 days a week. And I could work technically 2, but I'd end up working 4 days a week, going to school 3. And the only deal was you have to sit your exams. That was the only thing they cared about. And so I did that. So my last year of school, I was kind of part-timing it, did terribly at my schoolwork and that, but I was making a living. So it kind of worked for me. I was such a bad student. I just wanted to get out of school anyway. So I think everyone kind of saw the writing on the wall, and that this was probably in everyone's best interest that I go ahead and do this. And that was the start of my working in animation. Shortly after that, moved to work at a studio in Dublin, where I met my wife. First night staying in Dublin, I stayed at a bed and breakfast. And her parents happened to own that bed and breakfast. And so I started dating and been together ever since. So there you go. Talk about a tangent. Anyhow, let's talk about, this is all a bit of a disaster, this leg and this foot, but I'm going to leave it for now. We're already at half an hour. We'll keep going. We'll keep going. Like, let's talk about clavicle, shoulder girdle on muscular males. Let's have that conversation. Really quickly, what I'm going to do, how the pectoral deltoids and attachments are overlapping with each other, and the clavicle. Let me do something real quick because I want to have this conversation. I'm going to just put a pause on this drawing. I will come back to it in a moment, but let's take a real quick sidebar here. So, upper torso. Let's find our rib cage. Right, something like that. Cut out for the rib cage. Something like so for the neck. Sternum. Xiphoid process. Arch of the rib cage coming down like that. And something like that. This arch of the rib cage changes quite dramatically, not only from male to female, but from person to person. I actually read not for the rib cage, but probably applies. I read that there were 9 types of different pelvis. As far as slight changes in configuration and shape. My guess is it's probably something similar for the rib cage. This is what I'm thinking. Okay, manubrium sitting here, right, the pit of the neck. You can almost think of it shape-wise as the top of a tie, right? Little nub there. Seated in there is the clavicle, obviously clavicle coming up this way, sitting out here. And at the clavicle, just below the clavicle, we have the head of the humerus. Distance-wise from the edge of the rib cage, once again, it tends to shift male and female, but it's within the, in my experience, it tends to be within the boundary of the exterior of our box, right? This right here, you know, give or take. So our clavicle's coming up this way. Okay. Humerus is coming down this way. Halfway between the bottom of the rib cage and the top of the iliac crest is not only our navel, which is sitting here, but if we come out, it's also where our elbow is, approximately, right? Sitting about here. So let's talk. Pectoral muscle sits, at, as I said, at the 5th and the 6th rib, which are in this region here. Fifth rib comes down. It's about here. But there's this part of the pectoral muscle that kind of comes down here as well. Like it kind of does this as a shape. But it's very, very thin and very subtle down here. So you'd be forgiven for just drawing it here and thinking we're good to go. Like that would be forgivable. Now, let's come up this way. 2/3 of the way along our clavicle, there's a little gap. About here, actually it tends to, interestingly, that runs with where our rib cage is. That is where our pectoral muscle comes across and attaches down to the humerus here, right? Our deltoid is sitting next to that. But there is a little gap between there and we get a little kind of pocket of shadow that sits right in this region in here. We have something behind here attached to the scapula at the back called the coracoid process. And the coracoid process tends to reveal itself, especially on very lean people. You sometimes see a little bump right about here. That process is this kind of finger of bone coming from the scapula at the back, which muscle is attaching to. So something for us to keep in mind, right? But our pectoral is here, deltoid is here, right? So that's, as far as the shoulder girdle, we need to think of it kind of like the suspension system on a car. If we look at this whole thing from the top, right? Actually, let me draw this down here a little bit so you can see it a bit better. Imagine we're looking at this view from here, right? Actually, let's do orthographic here. Something like that, right? The cutout for the neck is about here. That rib cage. And I'm going off a very old memory here, so you're going to have to forgive me if I'm a little bit off. But it will hopefully illustrate the point. Our manubrium sitting in here. The clavicles are going back this way, and they're doing this. There's like an S shape to them, right? The scapula at the back is doing this. Obviously, if we looked at it from the back view, it's more like a triangle, right? Like this, and on the right-hand side like this. You get the idea. But it's coming here, and then here we have something called the acromion process. So the coracoid process is coming off the scapula and kind of sitting here, kind of tucking in from underneath the here. This is hopefully not getting too convoluted, but you get the point. The acromion process sits here. Now, the deltoid is attaching here, which is this point here. Right? Imagine we've got the head of the humerus, and let's just say our arm is coming out. So we come 2/3. The deltoid is sitting here. So it runs along, attaches here. attaches at the acromion process, and then it attaches about the same amount, 1/3 of the way along the ridge of the scapula, and kind of does this, right? Teardrop kind of idea. There's actually, now once again, I'm going to butcher this. I've heard that there's like, I think maybe 7 or 8 heads to the deltoid. We typically tend to see 3 that really express themselves, front, middle, and back. But you'll notice, especially on heavily muscular people, you'll see these kind of little, almost like these sub-deltoid muscles. I have looked for examples. Unfortunately, at Body Worlds, the desiccation method that they use eliminates a lot of that detail. It's one of those things I would love to see in an autopsy. You know, like right fresh, if you know what I mean. So I could really understand it, because I've yet to see an anatomy book that gives me a satisfactory explanation about the different heads of the deltoid and their names and that type of thing. Anyhow, I'm sure someone's going to enlighten me. That'd be great. So, point is, look at the way, if we just mirror this, right, then we get a dip here where the spine is, and then we get a repeat, obviously, on this side coming out this way, right? And once again, a acromion process, and the clavicle coming up this way. But look at this shape. If we just isolate that, if we just kind of straighten it out, look at the way that we end up with this almost triangular kind of idea, right? That's important. It's important that we understand that volumetrically and how that mass is turning in space, right? Now, interestingly enough, if sternocleidomastoid is coming up this way, right, it attaches at 2 points actually. It attaches at the manubrium, and then it attaches at the clavicle. And once again, there's this little separation point here, which also creates a pocket of shadow. The trapezius comes off this way, and as we know, the trapezius also attaches to the ridge of the scapula and goes down. But it also attaches at the front, and it also is at about just a little bit. I think it's just a tiny bit further over than the deltoid, but not by much. And it's doing this type of thing, right? You get that. So if we looked at it as far as kind of like a mass, it's doing that. And then the clavicle coming down, and then we've got this another pocket right here, right? Shadow, shadow, shadow. So you want to look for these 3 shadows. You can see on our subject, on the reference, look right here. You can get a sense for that little point, that little triangle right there. You can see it on him, on his left side. It exposes itself even more so, sometimes during different poses. Then deltoid coming down and attaching to the humerus, something like that. Right, so that's kind of, as far as the large ideas for the shoulder girdle. What you really want to do is you also want to have this conversation from a back view as well, right? Because if we just very quickly, we're having fun, right? Why not? We just imagine we're looking at the back here. Something like this, right? We've got the occipital ridge of the skull with that bump back at the back of your head. Let's say we've got a scapula sitting here. Maybe this one's coming up this way, and maybe this one's more relaxed, something like that. The trapezius is coming down, attaching to here, then coming along, and then coming down this way to a V shape. Right? Same on this side. Comes down, travels along there, and comes down like this. Right? The latissimus is coming from underneath the arm and kind of actually attaches back behind the trapezius here and here. Right? And then we can see it kind of come down and do its thing where it attaches down here. And once again, the acromion process that we're looking at here would be sitting at about this point. right? So you'll get a sense that, and then the deltoid at the back is attaching about 2/3 of the way along, and it's probably sitting. You might even see, depending on the angle of the arm, deltoid might be doing something like that, right? From the front and from the back. Something along those lines. Okay? I hope that makes sense. There are conditions such as pectus excavatum and pectus crenatum, pigeon chest, which also then adds to that number, right? I'm talking within the boundaries of, for want of a better term, what we would consider a normal condition for the rib cage or the pelvis, right? If we start getting into where people have bone abnormalities or deformations, then you know that number goes up exponentially, I'm sure. I teach comic storytelling, says American Discord, part-time at our West Campus. Most animation courses now focus in Adobe Animate and Blender. Yeah, did you hear? I guess it was announced today that they're shutting down Adobe Animate. That'll be interesting. People will have to learn something else. It's going crazy that Adobe are doing that, but Adobe tend to do strange things like that. Okay. I love the way you simplify the hands, says Tina. Thanks, Tina. When you do the next hand study session, love to learn quick sketch versions for hands. Yeah, we can talk about. We will talk about that. Definitely. So to the point that we were just making on the other drawing, just to see it in action, you can see that a clavicle, right, manubrium, clavicle, 2/3 of the way along, we get our deltoid, and that's pushing back, sitting in there. Normally that would be sitting a bit lower, but his arm is actually going away from us here, right? This is going away from us in this direction. And you can see that pectoral attached here, coming down, attaching to the humerus in here. And then you can see that pinch that we were talking about earlier, which is our pectoral kind of coming up this way and sitting in there. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Oblique coming down this way. So we're already at 44 minutes. I feel like we should probably think about moving on to the next pose. This was only ever meant to be a warm-up. So maybe this is not the pose now to just start going for leather with light and tone. Plus, I'm not very happy with the drawing, so it's probably as good a one to abandon as any. Navel sitting in here. American Discord, you said you did storyboard work on Marvel Action Hour Hulk cartoon. You all felt underutilized. Alright, well, it's unfortunate. Take care, Margie. Good luck with the doctors. Yeah, I think I'm gonna call it on this one. This drawing just, you know what part of it is? The thing that excited me about this drawing was this leg. And now it's done, I'm kind of like losing interest. I know, it's not professional. But it's the way my mind tends to work. Yeah, we can see the trapezius catching in here, and sitting in here. The neck. Okay. Yeah, let's call it. It's too much time on this drawing. I'm glad that helped, but yeah, good stuff. Jordan DXD. I also continue to fail at the end of the clavicle and the acromial spinal joint with the beginning of the shoulder roundness. All right, maybe we can, if I see an opportunity to have that discussion, I'll happily bring it up. Okay, next pose. Let's switch images here. Here's our next image. Change of pace, change of angle. Love the overall rhythm on this pose. Really led me to it, and also the relationship between light and shadow immediately drew it to me. The way that his right arm is kind of blocking the light some. There's a lot of fun to be had here. One of my favorite things you do is your tapering of the contours. I think this can be as important to volume as the space between. Thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think that it all comes to some degree or another. It's design language, but it's design language over mass. And then it's making the right choices, right? So yeah, it's kind of a multifaceted thing. But thank you, I appreciate that. Just Jorand is okay. Awesome. Thank you for telling me. You see, I thought it was Joran DXD, but it's not. It's Jorand XD. Cool. It always helps when people let me know how to pronounce their names. Let's get cracking, shall we? Next pose. I'd like to think we won't go as long as we just did, but you know, we were getting some things done. All right, shoulders. Always first, almost always. Want to find that axis. Want to find very early on this beautiful S shape coming down his back. And I'm hopefully pushing a little more than is in the reference. That's the general idea. And a long rhythmical line coming down right to his foot. Always need to make sure it's still on camera. Down to about there. Okay. We will make that. That's how I figure out proportions, by the way. A lot of the time you're saying, how do you keep stuff on the page? Make a mark. That's where my foot's going to be. Okay, we got the axis of the shoulders. The hips are tilting in the same way, but not to the same degree. So we'll find the bottom of our pelvis. about there. Right, something like that. You're coming back to that occipital ridge we were talking about, right back there, beginning of the journey of the trapezius. Something about there. Head will be about there. Scapula is actually, because his arm, his right arm, is kind of pushing back, it's pushing the mass of his scapula this way. Not extremely, but, you know, the edge of this form is here. We're probably looking at about here. Ridge of the scapula sitting up here. Head of the humerus is going to be about there. You can actually kind of almost see where the clavicle and the acromion process meet right there. Right, coming down very loosely. That elbow is going to be about there. Coming down, hand sitting here, wrist. I just want to find some music for us. Hold on. Do we dare go classical? Let's see. Oh, no. It was a terrible choice. Let's see. Can you guys even hear the music? Hopefully. Okay. That arm is coming down there. Look at the ridge, or not the ridge, but the edge of the scapula here. He's putting that under some tension. The fact that it's not collapsing into towards the spine tells me he's got that under a lot of tension. Sitting about there. Coming in like this. Direction change. Now, lower torso's here. His arm, buttocks are there. His wrist is about here. Excuse me. Okay. Sacrum. It's going to be about here. Can't really see it because of his undergarment, but we know it's there. Rib cage, just very lightly suggested. Just get some mass in there. Great, this when I was 12 years old, your nickname. That's funny. Yeah, look, all I can say is thank God the internet wasn't around when I was 12 years old. And I mean that, like, I'm glad. Something like that. And then we've got this leg is coming down here, knee's going to be about there. Got the overlap for the calf coming down, sitting about here. Excuse me. Down, sitting here. We'll come back to that. That arm is coming towards us. Okay, good. Music is playing. You guys do. Good stuff. All right. Now, let's find this other leg. So if our knee for our right leg is here, because of the foreshortening, that one sits about here. This leg is going away from us, something like so. If I come down the form, our leg is attaching about here, coming down, sitting about there. Now, on the reference, these do not intersect, the left and the right leg, but I kind of like the rhythm that pulling this leg over has supplied. So I'm not necessarily want to be too quick to go and change something like that and go, oh, well, actually now this is making me wonder, maybe this leg should be more this way or this leg should be more. It's fine. It's a drawing. If it works in and of itself, that is really what matters. So I like to say, no one's looking at a picture of your drawing and the photo next to it and doing a side-by-side comparison, unless you have the reference on the screen, which is why one of the reasons I don't like doing it, but we've talked about it. Anyway. We will continue. Hamstring. Quite taut. Sitting. The mass of that sitting in here. Something like so. All right, so the bones of the drawing are now kind of in place, we'll say. The proportions are roughly where they need to be. So let's take it further. How weird. Sorry guys, just finding music. There we go. Okay. I'm going to start kind of tying down a bit. Gluteus. And we can kind of see a little bit of compression from that oblique sitting in there. And we're coming up. Our rib cage is kind of pushing out this way. And then the clavicle is presenting itself here and coming up like that. Right. Come across the form. Deltoid's about here. And a really interesting design language coming up. So come up to the trapezius and then up this way. Look at that point there. The amount of tension that's on the clavicle. Fitting in there. Very cool. Okay. Yeah, elbows about here. Just below where the oblique is. I'm going to go with that. Okay. And something you don't see very often, which is hyperextension on the male. But here we are. And brachioradialis revealing itself there. And down. Something like so. Two heads of the tricep. Sitting in there. His hand is on this plinth. Something like that. We'll come back and massage these things as we need to. I think for now that's gonna keep things moving forward. So from the oblique, gluteus medius sitting in there. And down on knee. Just below the oblique is that, and where the sacrum, top of the sacrum is where his garment line is. Over here. Okay. Now I'm going to actually jump over to this arm because of the way that it's intersecting or sitting in front of the rib cage. It's probably a useful time to kind of think about it. Let's start up here, trapezius. Now the arm's going towards us, so it actually gives the illusion of things getting shorter, right? The deltoid would normally feel quite a bit longer in reality, but elbow here. So come around the form, let's find the interior edge. Split of the tricep sitting in here. Let's just establish our spine. Heavy cast shadow coming off the form here. Can you see? Look, well, you can see because you can see the reference. Look at the way just from up here we see the shadow of the trapezius sitting in here, and then it kind of S's down this way. Right, and then we kind of it kind of drifts down there. That's the triangle that we were drawing when we were just looking at the back view, right? Very rarely see that. You only see that in the fittest of models, the leanest of models. But a really nice example of seeing how that trapezius kind of follows the form around. It's a nice example. Something like so. Okay. Where are we at time? 16 minutes. That's more like it. Off. Oh dear. Something like so. Yes, fits on this little brick. All right. Another cast shadow. Sitting in here. Turning into a core shadow there. Thank you, neighbor. All right. Just finding some core shadows. All right. Let's do a little bit of a block in here. We've got a hard edge for the scapula there. You're very welcome, Jim. Yeah, he's a great model, isn't he? A lot of fun to draw. I'm going to break one of my own cardinal rules here, and I'm going to use the eraser, which I've done about 3 times in 200 streams, which would tell you the severity of the mistake. Now, I just want to move this hand in. And I tried to make a quick fix there, and I butchered it. So let's just get it right, huh? It's not like it's a huge fix or anything, but it's a fix nonetheless. That's a bit better. All right. I think I'm tempted to leave this here now, because to go to the next stage means going to the next stage with several elements, and I think at 25 minutes it's kind of like it's a big sweet spot to kind of walk away, you know. Yeah, that's a fun pose. It's lovely. Yeah, look, the model did all the hard work there. All right. Next pose. Tricky one. There's a twist in the form here, which is the reason I picked this next pose. Oh, let me change it on your screen and not just mine. That would help. There we go. Yeah, it's, you know, the twisted torsos always can present challenges, so I figured it could be a fun one. Let's see how we do. I think there's a very good chance I'm going to make this next one either the last pose, this one, the last pose, or if we do more, it'll be maybe a couple of 5s. I'm already feeling my energy is just quite there. But anyway, we'll continue and we'll get this. We'll play around with this one for a bit. See what we can do. If we do end up leaving before getting the other 2 poses done, I will of course leave them on my website. For those of you who are members, you'll be able to draw them at your own pace. All right, let me reset the clock. Let's go. All right. Twisted pose. So, what are we going to do? Well, I want to find the, as we tend to do, find the long rhythmical ideas. keep things real loose at this point. So we can see that we're going from where we can't see the back to seeing the back. And if I was drawing this kind of in the idea of a box, right, this edge of the box would be there, and it kind of come forward, right? Something like that. So here we've got the center line of the chest, and here we have the center line of the back. Head of the humerus is about here. Now I need to be careful I keep him straight. I'm all for rhythm, but not if he's going to fall over. So this calf in relationship to this shoulder is actually about here. So now's a pretty good time to look at that. It's also going to help give me the volume I need at the back of the form here. But yeah, tricky. But that's that, finding that leg, believe it or not, finding where this calf is and where this leg sits, our supporting leg, in relationship to the mass of the upper torso, is really, really important for the overall structural integrity of the pose. And we're early enough along in the proceedings where we can afford to make those types of changes. Arm coming down like so, and just doing that. Pectoral muscle. We can see the latissimus, then the oblique, really pulling beautifully down in this direction. Asis is probably sitting about here. Can't see it, but important to know that that is the case. Iliac crest is sitting here, which is where we had our line, so that's good. So I think we're good to keep going. Deltoid is sitting here. Something like so. Where's our sacrum? Well, iliac crest is coming this way, and it is disguised, it's hiding beneath the garments. So we need to be able to see what's going on and find it regardless, because it's going to give us our subdivision for the glutes. Sitting in here. So we're going to probably calm this down just a little bit. There. Also just sitting below the iliac crest is, or actually next to it is the wrist, sitting here. Deltoid. And it's going to be about there. Deltoid is sitting here. His chin is, once again, his head tilting down. Roughly there, you can see his ears all the way back here, right? Because of the axis. Very hard to see because it's in the shadow, but the trapezius is pushed right up here because of how much this arm is kind of pushing up and back. How fun is this one? This one's a challenge. Yeah, it is a good, probably is a good finale. If we end on a strong note, there's always that fear that it will fall apart. That is not going to help. Let's change that. All right. So, iliac crest. You can see the mass of the oblique sitting in here. Then we get the serratus, the latissimus sitting in here. And look at, be mindful of those of you drawing along. Look at the shape of this right pectoral muscle and the overall volume of it. It's going to be very easy to overdo it, overcook it, so to speak. You want to leave room for the left one, and you know, we just want to be mindful. You give too much volume to this right pectoral, you're going to give the illusion that he's turned even further towards camera, and we run the risk of breaking the anatomy. So we want to be pretty careful of that. Also, it couldn't hurt to look where, say, for example, the pit of the arm is here. Where is that in relationship to other things? Well, if I drop a plumb line down from that, it does come roughly to where the glutes separate. So I think I'm kind of in the right ballpark there. You want to look for those types of measurements, especially when dealing with a pose like this, because we need to if you go, Whitney, if you go into the description of the video, hold on, let me have a look here. If you go down into the description of the video, you will see about 4 lines down, it says a link to the reference can be found here. If you click on that link is not working. That's interesting. Oh no, it is working. Okay, if you go to that link, click, and then you'll see January, it says January 26, but stream 209, the top one. I need to change that to put that in February. Apologies. And then if you click that, that's the affiliate link over to Gumroad. My internet is super slow, so I'm going to stop clicking on links because I don't want to lose you guys. Okay. as we like to say, I'm in the ballpark here with my proportions and overall business. I'm ready to move on. Maybe start tying down a bit here. Making a right mess. Okay. Change pencil. I'm going to, in the chat, I'm just going to put a link to the links page on my website. And apologies for the fact that I have to send you to my site before sending you to theirs. I used to do direct links to Graphic Studio, for example, but if I link, and it doesn't actually apply in this case, but if I link to a page that has nude images on it, which most of Graphics does, I get told off by YouTube in the form of a shadow ban. Bicep. So that's why I had to create this unfortunate and very frustratingly annoying extra step. But it's unfortunately necessary. You see the tension on that deltoid, and you can start to get a sense of those multiple heads that we were talking about, right? Okay. That'll do us for now. Now let's have a look here what's going on. So what can we see? Well, just above the pant line we can see the oblique. Transitioning to the rib cage. And then to the latissimus. See that mass of the latissimus sitting in here. And we can see the center line for the spine, which we really want to show because we want to get a sense of how the form is turning, right? And that's sitting in there, and then it's kind of turning this way, right, and transitioning to the back of the form. Whereas the pectoral is going to show us the front of the form. Something like that. And then this becomes the profile of the form, and then we'll put on the left pectoral muscle. It's tricky. It's not often that you have poses where you have twists to this degree, which it's awkward, you know. There's no getting around the fact that it's awkward. So this is then obviously the left pectoral sitting in there, and then next to that obviously is the deltoid, etc. Good, I'm glad that worked for you. And apologies again that it's so convoluted. But I literally got 6 months from YouTube where they punished me for actually an interview with another artist that I did, and I had links to one of his art books, and it had nudity in it, and they struck me on that. But they've also struck me before on the graphic stuff. So yeah. So there's our turn. It's kind of working. We'll still, you know, got a beauty pass to do here, but we kind of got it. We're in the ballpark. Hamstring coming down to our knee joint, our knee system, sitting there. And our calf coming down. There's tension there. Iliotibial tract coming down the leg, we can really see it there, right? Turn the form. All right. I hope that this is YouTube and Facebook are sensitive. Yeah, no kidding. And Instagram. Although you won't get, well, the difference is I don't have a financial stake in whether Instagram shadow bans me or not. Or Facebook for that matter. But YouTube are super sensitive. Anyway, we've talked about it so much on this channel, I'm going to just leave it there. But yeah, there you go. Very strange. Well, just the way his foot is. It's one of those that no matter how you draw this thing, it's going to look wrong. And he's pressing on his toes there. Doesn't look like it should work, but it's working for him. His thumb, and then we can just get into the fingers. Well, as I said before, you know, I think that we'll be drawing this guy again sooner rather than later. There was actually another couple of models that Graphit had that had got my attention too. But this one kind of did jump out at me, so to speak. We can even let light and tone kind of just carry a little bit of the burden of showing the twist in the form by letting this, ignoring the subtle, but ignoring the light source coming from this direction and focusing on the one coming from this, just to help kind of show how the form is turning in space. Yeah, not a great drawing, but a good exercise, good workout, right? Like that's why we're here. But yeah, it's a bit of a toughie. And with that said, I think we're going to do one more drawing, 5 minutes. I can't finish on that. That's just, I can't guarantee the last one will be any better. But let's not finish on this drawing. I think my guy is broken, says James. You and me both. No, I think that all the channels have these issues. I think that because here's the thing that can happen. I think you'll be surprised at what they. I'd be very curious, and I've never looked. I'd be very curious if Propo even links to any direct link in the description that goes to an image that is fully nude. Now, new Masters Academy have their timed poses. They have timed nude poses. Interesting. I've got a feeling what's happened with those is they've been demonetized, and they're happy for them to be demonetized because they bring traffic to the channel in general. That would be my guess, although I've never spoken to the guys over at New Masters Academy. But I don't think it's a case of you're so big that you suddenly censorship laws don't apply to you. I don't think that's the case. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to skip, for those of you following along, we can put it on here. I'm going to skip image 4. I'm going directly to image 5, this one, just so you can see what image 4 was. It's this. And it's another one of those long form kind of, you know, not really a 5-minute pose kind of energy. This is. So we'll do this one, make it a little bit bigger there. And we'll have a bit of fun. We'll finish with a 5-minute gesture. I don't know all the terminology you use, but I'm muddling through. June, that's absolutely understandable. And why would you? Um, but you know what? It's, ask Margot. I know I don't mean to pick Margot out of the lineup, but I think Margot would sympathize with your feeling that way, because I think Margot she's made a comment more than once that, oh yeah, I know what these terms mean, and oh, I recognize that term, type of thing. You'll get it. It'll, it's like anything, right? Repetition. You start doing something enough times, and things stick. So hopefully there'll be more clarity as the sessions go on. Okay. I'd also strongly encourage you, time and will permitting, go back over some of the older streams, and find the reference for them and practice. And you'll hear me talk about these things over and over again. I'm a broken record, Jane. Let's not kid ourselves. I parrot this 5 same facts pretty much every stream. It won't take you long before you figured my trick. Okay. 5 minutes. I'm going to start with this pencil and see how it goes. Okay. Center line. Just find this rhythm of this leg. Into about here, going down this way. This back leg, this right leg doing something like that, going away from us. Rib cage. What is this? Pixar movie? Get out of here. All right, maneuvering. Clavicle, up, arm, back, boom. Clavicle, arm. Sternocleidomastoid. Rib cage, oblique, ute, navel, rib cage, oh, look at that tricep. That look at that little coracobrachialis, that little muscle just peeking out from the pectoral there, and then the tricep, even the bicep. This would be, I would encourage people to take this pose and study this arm and the connection points and that. Some very, very interesting, important ideas going on here that certainly justify more Can you hear me now? You can hear me now. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you buy new microphones and they're wireless and you forget to charge them. So apologies for that. Oh, so what was I saying? Let me go back. Let's get off that awful drawing. Excuse me. I use an app called Essential Anatomy 5. I don't know how much of this you did or didn't hear. It's for the phone or for the iPad. What I love about it is the ability to be able to rotate the figure and the form. So yes, anatomy books can work. Once again, I've had this conversation many times on here. I'm reluctant to recommend any in particular because especially some of the ones that are older that were published a while back, you find inconsistencies from one to the other. In saying that, any app or any anatomy book is going to be better than no anatomy book. And what is really useful is that be drawing, and when you see something you're unsure of, find it in your anatomy book, and then to help bring clarity to what you're doing, especially if you're just working at home and you're not in a huge hurry. So that's a really useful way to go. But there's so much material out there. You know, if you just type in your search engine, you know, you just type anatomy, anatomy for figure drawing, you're going to find an absolute ton of stuff. I've done stuff myself. There's even some of the videos on my channel where we focus in on anatomy. In saying all of that, I do want to finish on one note because I think it's really important, because it trips a lot of people up that come into figure drawing, is this thought or this expectation in their own mind that they have to learn every name of every muscle and understand all the relationships and all of that. And in my mind, that's simply not the case. I think that there's certain landmarks which are as important to understand as names of muscles or groups. And there's a few, literally just a few, handful, that if you understand those, your understanding of so many things will start coming together. For example, the ACES, those where the iliac crest, we talked about a number of times, the iliac crest comes to the belt line, the little bumps at the front that you can see on the hips, right? The ACES. ACES are, in my mind, on the front of the form, certainly for the lower torso. They're the most important landmarks we have, because of the amount of muscles that attach at that point and the importance as it's in its function as an intersection between the upper and the lower torso. So I would much rather you know and be able to look at any model and be able to locate where the ACES is. It's far more important to me than you understanding that there are 4 muscles of the quadricep for the upper leg, right? The manubrium, the pit of the neck, understanding where that is. Why is it important? Well, because that's where the clavicles attach, right? That's where we were talking about earlier, that wishbone system that actually attaches to the scapula at the back, right? So understanding where the manubrium is and its relationship to the clavicles is very important. More important than knowing how many heads there are to the deltoid, to the shoulder muscle, for example, right? The acromion process, that little pit of the shoulder right there, that that little bump that you feel right there, super important to understand the acromion process, because once again, we understand that. We understand that the head of the humerus sits underneath it. We understand how the deltoid then attaches at the front, middle, back, etc., right? Sacrum at the back. Let's know where that is and how to locate it, because once again, it's a major intersection of not only muscle, but the upper and the lower torso, right? It acts as that intersection where the iliac crest comes down. So I don't want to belabor the point, but what I do want you to understand is that you will develop a sense and you will build a sense for anatomy and ideas on how to build your figure through osmosis and through repetition. These terms, if you hear them enough times, or we discuss things, or you have to use them enough times in different scenarios, this process that we're working through, because hopefully you've noticed, if you're new to this, that I start every drawing the same way. I don't want to say it's a formula, but the reality is, if we have a system in place, then if we've got a predictable system, we have a much better chance of having predictable results. And we don't want to ever rely. You lost me again? I'm here, right? Am I gone? Oh no. I'm guessing that that's it. I'm not sure whether we're working now or not. Okay, I think I'm back. Okay. Sorry. I think I'm having internet issues. That my internet's choking up. So we'll wrap this up for now. Point being is, don't let the enormity of the subject ever be a block for continuing your journey. You will learn this stuff. It'll happen slowly. People say, oh, I need to learn anatomy. What's the quickest way to learn anatomy? Forget all of that. Just do the process. Go through the process. Guess what? You've got to do your 1,000 bad drawings. Everyone does. I do. I still do them. Did a few tonight, right? You know, no matter how good an artist appears on their Instagram page or on their, you know, their social media, trust me, everyone does bad drawings. It's built into the fabric of what we do, because if you don't do bad drawings, it means you're not taking chances, right? And we've got to take chances. That's why we're here. We're kind of setting ourselves up to not only succeed, but to fail sometimes too. And it's in those failures that we will learn and grow. So just enjoy the journey and don't worry too much about the minutiae. That will all come. You'll get all of that for free if you just stick it out. If you show up, you'll get that stuff for free, really. That's why I love it, and it continues to give to me, and it continues to fascinate me and surprise me sometimes. So thank you so much for being with me today. As I said, my energy levels at the moment are up and down. I'm going to attempt to be here on Thursday, but I can't guarantee I'll be here on Thursday. But what I will do is I'll put the messages on the usual spots, my website, YouTube, and Instagram, and probably Facebook, letting you know on Thursday morning whether Thursday evening will go ahead or not. I just don't want to promise at this point. In the meantime, if I don't see you then, hopefully I'll see you next Tuesday. And in the meantime, look after yourselves. All right? Take care. I'll see you then. Cheers.